Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Path to Truth Radio. I'm your host today, Zerubbabel Judah. Normally, I have my brothers with me, Solomon, Obadiah, Shem, right? But today I'm gonna rock solo, just due to circumstances. But we're gonna keep the show rolling, all right? And hopefully, y'all been tuning in. We've moved our schedule from Fridays to Saturdays, 6 to 8 p.m. All right, Saturdays to 6 to 8 p.m. Hopefully, you can join us on this Sabbath day and enjoy, what we got going. Hopefully we're able to deliver the word to you and that you get some truth, because that's the whole point of the show. If you want to call in, Fishbowl Radio Network. We'll make sure we get to the answers if we can. All right, so now let's get into the topic. So today, man, I want to discuss a couple things just because, we just came off of a freeze here in the Texas region. I'm sure some other states did as well, but I'm going to speak specifically on us because I was here, we witnessed it, right? And I was having a discussion with a young man who didn't understand the scriptures or the seasons according to the scriptures. And as I told him, because he was like, man, why is it February and we're getting snow? Why is it February and it's a freeze? And I'm like, well, this is the last month of the actual biblical year. So it makes sense. This is the last month going into the next month, which will be March, will start the spring, right? And that holds true. But also in the Israelite community, we were taught that basically later on in March is when the actual year will start, and according to the scriptures and according to the sources that I'm gonna bring out today, today being the actual first day of the month, since we have a new moon today, the 27th of February 2021, a new moon being the full moon, the first full moon of the spring, and I'm gonna prove that being the month of Abib. Today is actually the beginning of the year. If it was later on, which some brothers and a lot of brothers who have been taught according to how we were taught before, they're going to celebrate the first new moon later on in the spring, closer to April. And when you do that, you greatly err because you miss a whole month of spring, which biblically starts in March. Now I'm going to show you the difference between a couple different calendars. I'm going to show you the difference between a couple different views, which one lines up biblically and one doesn't. So you have what's called the astronomical seasons, which that's what a lot of people go by, right? But we go by a meteorological season because that's biblical, and I'm gonna show that. I'm gonna bring out the definitions, and we're gonna prove them. We're gonna see if that holds true and if the Bible is true, and if that actually lines up. And it goes into other topics because we talk about astronomical seasons. Now you're saying that the Earth spins and it rotates around the sun, and everything is chaotic in space. But according to meteorological seasons, you have a stationary earth and you have a sun that moves according to the scriptures. We know that to be true because he held still the sun, right? So according to a meteorological season, the sun rotates, the moon rotates in their seasons, and they do what they do. And that's what the Bible says, and other resources that I'm going to bring out. We're going to prove that. Before we get into it, I'm going to read a couple of scriptures because all of this deals with wisdom of the Most High. No man can boast or brag and say he is the one who brings forth the knowledge, because the Most High is the one who gives you the knowledge and gives you the increase of that knowledge if you choose to do so. So although I might not have learned this from anybody, I have sat and researched. The scriptures tell you in Proverbs, and this is my favorite scripture, and I'll read this first just because I feel wholeheartedly that the Most High will hold up to his word, and when you do the things that he commands you to do, then he will bless you. When you don't, then he will curse you. And I've lived that. I've lived the blessings. I've lived the curses, right? And I continue to study to make sure that I get those blessings, because that's the life that I want to provide for myself and for my family, because that's what he promised to us. This is Proverbs 25:2. It says, "It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter." So the glory of God is to conceal a thing, meaning to hide something, right? To bury it, or to put it in a place where it's not easily found. And so according to what I'm reading and according to the research that I'm doing, I'm able to see that there are certain things that we have missed, not because we don't study or we lack the knowledge, but maybe he didn't bestow that understanding upon that particular person, right? Or those particular people or their congregation or whatever the case might be, because they might be lacking something, and that might be the lack of research. That's why he says it is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So if somebody's telling you not to search out a matter, there's a problem. You should be searching and researching and reading and trying to find out if these things are true, because that's what our forefathers did. And so within that, again, upon my studies and upon the things that I've seen and in the truth, as we call it, among the Hebrews or among the Israelites, right? Among our culture, we've been taught one way, and we've continually progressed in our understanding, right? But it hasn't stopped yet, right? It's going to continue to grow. And so I'm going to show that. I'm going to show that actually, again, the seasons and the type of seasons that we deal with, again, the meteorological season being the one that is biblical, but it's not the one that the world goes by, and it's not the one that even brothers and sisters who have woken to the truth go by. Just because we don't have the knowledge just yet, my goal, my plan is to make sure that I make this plain as our forefathers have, and I'm going to read the scriptures to prove that, right? But let's go ahead and get into some scriptures first, just dealing with knowledge and understanding, and then we'll get into some of the basics of the moon to see if these things hold true. All right, so I'm going to start out in the book of Wisdom of Solomon. Wisdom of Solomon, I'm going to go to the 6th chapter. I'm going to start at the 9th verse, all right? And I'm doing this because, again, I want to touch on knowledge, and what better book to go to than the book of the Wisdom of Solomon. There's great knowledge in this book, and if applying the scriptures and keeping the faith as we are supposed to, again, from my understanding, from my experience, I've seen how the Most High can open your mind to understanding above that which we have already been taught, all right? So here we go. Wisdom of Solomon 6, chapter, in verse 9. Unto you, therefore, O king, do I speak, that ye may learn wisdom and not fall away. For they that keep holiness holy shall be judged holy, and they that have learned such things shall find what to answer. Right? And so here it is. He's telling us if we live uprightly and we do the things that are necessary, he's going to make sure that he gives us the understanding. He's going to make sure that we have learned the things that we need to learn so that we can find the answers, so that we can give these answers to our people. Verse 11. Wherefore, set your affection upon my words, desire them, and ye shall be instructed. So if you really want wisdom, yes, it's good to have teachers. Yes, we need teachers, right? Yes, we need fellowship and those things, but the end all be all sets with the Most High, his words and his instruction. If you really want understanding, you must lean upon his words, all right? Verse 12. Wisdom is glorious and never fadeth away. Yea, she is easily seen of them that love her, and found of such as seek her. So if wisdom is something that's everlasting, right, it's going to show no matter what they say, no matter what, there's a lot of people who could come against you, a lot of people that can naysay you, a lot of people that can backstab and backbite or whatever the case is. But the one thing they cannot do is suppress wisdom. No matter who you are, you could be in prison like our forefather Joseph, and they cannot suppress your wisdom. You could be a slave. You could be whatever the case may be. You could be in any situation, and wisdom will shine through. And that has been proven time and time again. All right, verse 13. She preventeth them that desire her, and making herself first known unto them. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail, for he shall find her sitting at his door. So no matter what it is that you go through, right, if you seek her early, like it says, what should a man have in his older time, if he don't build it up in his youth or seek it in his youth? That's what you should be doing right now, so that when those times come, it said no man should have travail. Again, I bring up Joseph. He was facing death out in the desert, in a pit. He was facing prison, all type of stuff. But guess what? In the end, it was shown his wisdom. All right? Verse 14. Whoso seeketh her early shall have no great travail, for he shall find her sitting at his doors. To think therefore upon her is perfection of wisdom. And whoso watches for her shall quickly be without care. So again, it's telling you like this should be at the forefront of your mind so that you can have the things that are necessary. And again, if you go to our page, Path to Truth on YouTube, you'll see some of the topics we talk about as far as the latter times and how we're supposed to prepare and get ready for these trial tribulations that are coming, because before the Messiah returns and before he sends the chariots to lift us up and all those things, there's going to be perilous times on this earth. And if you're not prepared for it, it's going to make it even worse. And then what man or what leader or what king would you be if you didn't prepare your people, your family, right, and your boys, right, or your congregation, if you didn't prepare them for the things that have come? But instead it was, all about the fun, the games, the drink, and so forth, when there's way more than that. But again, wisdom will show you that. Verse 16. For she goeth about seeking such as are worthy of her, showeth herself favorably unto them in the ways, and meaneth them in every thought. For the very true beginning of her is the desire of discipline, and the care of discipline is love. So the very true beginning of having some type of wisdom is to be disciplined in whatever you do. whatever you do repeatedly is what you will be good at, right? So if you're going to have wisdom, you have to continue to apply wisdom. Therefore, it'll show forth later on. But if you don't apply wisdom and do it and seek it diligently, it's not going to happen. So the beginning of it, right, is to be disciplined if you really want it. It says, in the care discipline is love. And love is the keeping of her, verse 18, and love is the keeping of her laws. And the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. So if I am going to have wisdom, right, in the beginning of that is discipline, right, and then that discipline is love of the commandments, right? It says love is keeping of her laws, and the giving heed unto her laws is the assurance of incorruption. So if I'm going to have wisdom and I'm going to overcome whatever it is I'm facing in the end, the only way I'm going to do this through the commandments, the laws that God set up, the ones that a lot of people say are done away with. But he said, this is how you establish yourself in the latter times. So therefore we must seek wisdom. Therefore you must seek discipline. Therefore you must seek love. Therefore you must seek the commandments, right? Verse 20. Therefore the desire of wisdom bringeth to a kingdom. So if you desire wisdom, which is love, commandments, and so forth, as we just read, then that's how you bring it to a kingdom, because those are the things that are set up that are orderly for you to be able to do the things that are necessary to rule in the kingdom, which it'll conclude with that at the very end of this. But how can you have a kingdom? How can you have rulership? How can you have anything that is of value but not have any type of structure? How can you have anything of value and not show some type of love and care for those things? How can you have anything of structure, again, and you don't have discipline to be able to do that on a daily basis? It has to be set that way in order for it to make sense. And so if wisdom is the same way, and if wisdom brings forth the kingdom, then you have to be disciplined within the things that bring forth that kingdom, and it's giving you the exact detail, the exact map on how to get there. Verse 21. If your delight be then in thrones, so if you want rulership, right, and scepters, O ye kings of the people, honor wisdom, that ye may reign forevermore. So if you want to have your congregation, right, don't honor man, don't honor drink and gifts and all the other, honor wisdom, right? If you're sitting among a congregation and you want your wife to be righteous when you're having issues with your wife, why are you honoring men? Why are you even sitting up, right, and doing certain things and partying or whatever? Your house ain't right. You should be honoring the wisdom on how to make sure that that situation is right and applying the things to make sure that that situation is right. No other man can do it for you. You must do it. O king, that desireth, what did it say? Verse 21, if you delighteth to be then in thrones and scepters, O ye kings of the people, O you leaders of the people, honor wisdom, that ye may reign forevermore, that you can have your rule forevermore. Because if you honor wisdom, just like Solomon did, when situations come up and you have to decide between the matters, or judge between the matters, they'll see righteous judgment, like we read earlier, right? Judge, keep holiness holy, and then you shall be judged holy, right? Let's read on. Verse 22, as for wisdom, what she is and how she came up, I will tell you, and will not hide mysteries from you, but will seek her out from the beginning of her nativity, and bring the knowledge of her into light, and will not pass over the truth. So if you want wisdom, if this is what you're really seeking, is what you want, I'll tell you exactly what it is. There's no mystery, right? He already told us he was keeping the commandments. It says, verse 23, neither will I go with consuming envy, for such a man shall have no fellowship with wisdom. So if there's an envious man among you and he doesn't want you to, rise up, this, that, and other, it'll show. And he said he's not going to have fellowship with that type of person, right? Or wisdom won't have fellowship with that type of person. But the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is the upholding of the people, right? So wisdom is the welfare of the world, meaning that's how the world would be able to be at peace. That's how the world would be able to grow the crops necessary needed to feed the multitude of people, or have an understanding of the seasons, which we're about to go over, so that we can be prepared for what's to come. Have an understanding of what the stars are telling us and so forth, because they are made for signs and for times, as he told us. But if you don't understand those things, you don't seek wisdom, then it won't happen for you. So these things are set for us to get, but we have to sit, study, and get the understanding, therefore, so that we can actually benefit others. It's not just for ourselves, as the scriptures say. So verse 24 again says, but the multitude of the wise is the welfare of the world, and a wise king is the upholding of the people, right? Receive therefore instruction through my word, and it shall do you good. Receive therefore instruction through my words, and it shall do you good. So if you pay attention to what the scriptures are saying, if you listen and you hearken to what the Most High is telling you, it said it will do you good. You don't even, I still don't even have a full understanding of why the understanding was given to me on a topic that a lot of brothers disagree with. I don't care if they disagree, brothers. You still my brother, whatever the case. We can sit, we can chop it up through the scriptures. I can show you proof. Even dealing with Esau and that whole situation. When it comes to this, there's going to be brothers and sisters in the world, brothers and sisters in the truth who say, I don't know if that's right because my elder, my pastor, my whoever taught me this. That is up to you, all right? I don't really have the full understanding just yet, but I do understand what he taught me through diligence, through being disciplined, through belief, through faith, through the things that no man can give you, but the Most High said that he will reveal to you if you honor him, right? And so it says, receive therefore instruction through my words. So that's where I get my instructions from. It says, and it shall do you good. I don't even know what the good is going to be. Don't even matter to me. Whatever good he got set up for us is what he got set up for us. The fact of the matter is that we're supposed to receive the instruction through his word and then deliver. So when you get the understanding, and the Most High give you whatever understanding it is, you go and you share that. That don't mean that just because I got this understanding that I'm looking down on brothers and sisters who don't have it, or whatever understanding we were taught before that I look back at it like, no, because whatever that understanding was at the time, it brought me to the point where we are now. Right, but then you have the envious, and then you have the jealousy within, bodies and congregations and leaders, just individually within themselves, that will not even allow them to receive that. Right, but so that's a basic understanding on us who are supposed to be leaders and kings, how we're supposed to be able to get this understanding, use this understanding for the welfare of the world. I don't care. Y'all can get into the topics of who's going to inherit the kingdom. We already know that's Israel. Who's going to be in the kingdom? Those that are disciplined, who are going to bow down to the Most High and so forth. Okay, cool. But at the end of the day, when we get back to how it's supposed to be and you have rulership and so forth, wisdom is what's going to run the world. It ain't going to be, your garment. It ain't going to be your song, your chant. It ain't going to be whatever the case may be. It's going to be wisdom. And so that's what we should be seeking. All right? So with that, excuse me, I'm going to stay in the same chapter. I'm staying in the same chapter. With the same book, I'm just going to go a chapter over, all right? Because this is set up what we're about to actually go into. And like I said, we're going to be discussing the stars, somewhat. We're going to be discussing the moon. We're going to be discussing the seasons. We're going to be discussing, things that are well known in the, I guess you could say, the studied community or the research community, right? Like they have certain things already that they put out. And, it's proven, it's facts according to what they say, right? Supposedly. But we're going to see how it lines up with the Bible and which one makes sense. So it's February 27, 2021. Is this the new moon or did we wait for the dark moon? Also, is it the new year or is it later on in the year? We're going to see. Because, again, I believe in the scriptures as we just read. And it says if we follow his words that he would do us good. So we're going to see. All right. Let's stay in Wisdom of Solomon. Let's go to 7th chapter. Let's go to the 15th verse. Wisdom of Solomon 7:15 says, God have granted me to speak as I would, and to conceive as is meet for the things that are given me, because it is he that leadeth unto wisdom, and directeth the wise. For in his hands are both we and our words, all wisdom also and knowledge of workmanship. So whatever it is that I speak, whatever talent I may have, whatever wisdom it is that I may project, it comes of the Most High. All right. Verse 16 says, for in his hands are both we and our words, all wisdom also, and knowledge of workmanship. For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely, to know mainly to know how the world was made, and the operation of the elements, the beginning, ending, and midst of times, the alterations and the turning of the sun. Right. So again, that's why I said when you go and you're dealing with these different topics, you better understand what the Bible says first if you're a true believer, because if not, you'll be going down a rabbit hole that leads not to salvation, but to idol worship and everything else. Let me read that again. Verse 18, the beginning, ending, and midst of times, the alterations of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons, the circuits of years, and the positions of the stars. Right? So these are the things that we're going to be focusing on, because this chapter gives you more wisdom on certain things. It tells you certain things, whatever. But these are the things we want to focus on. And let me read it one more time just so you can understand before we get into it, that it's not my understanding. It's not something that I came up with. It's something that I researched. It's something that I believe when I heard it and when I felt it in my spirit. I knew. Let me just go read to confirm. When I read to confirm, it was confirmed. Let me read that verse again. Matter of fact, 17. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 7 and verse 17. For he hath given me certain knowledge of the things that are, namely to know how the world was made, and the operation of the elements, the beginning, ending, and midst of times, the alterations of the turning of the sun, and the change of seasons, the circuits of years, and the positions of stars. Verse 22. For wisdom, which is the worker of all things, taught me, right? So that's what we're going to get into. That's what we're going to touch on. Let's go to a break real quick, and we'll come right back. Hey, welcome back to the Path of Truth Radio here on Fishbowl Radio Network. Glad y'all could join us. We're going to get right back into the topic. We're discussing the seasons right now. Discussing the seasons being that we just had a freeze here in Texas, late February, and then a week after we go right into sunshine, 60-degree weather, and people confused and wondering why, right? Because to them, the new year started in January. It's like, okay, well, we should be winding down from the cold now. But no, biblically, what y'all call February will be, the last month. So where's the proof of that? Where can we find these things written? Like, what are some documents that we can go to see if what we're saying is true? And like I said, based off of this year's new moon, which I will prove that the new moon is not the dark moon, that the new moon is actually the moon that you see when it's full of light. That first new moon of the spring will be called the month of Abib. The Bible says that these shall be the beginning of months to you. We'll read that in a minute. But that bright light that you see, that first moon, if you look outside right now, is the Sabbath, February 27th. That moon is the first full or first new moon of the spring. And we're going to prove that March and April and May are the months of spring. March, April, and May, right? And so let's get into some scriptures first. When we speak from a biblical perspective, right? And so we have to also understand that the Bible was written with a particular people in mind, being the Israelites, who in today's time, if you know the story of the blacks, Hispanics, so-called Native Americans on this part of the world, and then also when you go out into other parts of the world, whether that be South Africa, like the Madagascar area, you go into the Congo, you go into Nigeria, west coast of Africa, you go into Spain, you go to all these different places, Morocco, you go to different places, you have Israelites living there, because throughout time we've been dispersed, according to the Bible, into these different places by different means. Some on slave ships, some walk, some have been residents there for a while, some were residents in Spain who converted to other religions, right? Some were already on this side of the world through early explorations. I mean, there's many different ways that slave ships, there are many different ways that we are dispersed. But the Bible at this particular time, and some of the scriptures that we were reading, we're talking about us in our homeland. And when you research our homeland, which is Jerusalem, Northeast Africa at that time, you'll see many of the things that were said were based off of our seasons, right? So let's read Galatians 4:26 first. Galatians 4:26 says, but Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all, right? And there's a lot that goes into that scripture, but the basis of what we just read is talking about that being our motherland, as a lot of people like to say, right? That is the birthplace of Israel in a sense. So with that being said, the things that are written, the things that we read, things that are brought out today will be with the understanding that at that particular time, when the things were written and we were getting certain understandings of seasons and so forth, it was based off of us being in our homeland, all right? Mainly Jerusalem, as far as what we're bringing out today, all right? There's other, we have Mount Sinai, and then our Arab brothers had basically the same thing over in Arabia, right, which was the alternate to Mount Sinai at particular times. We had a couple different holy spots, as you would call it, but dealing with these seasons, we're going to be dealing with Jerusalem, and I'm going to show you why in a minute. I'll read some information, and I'm going to make it plain for you, all right? So let's go to Genesis first. Let's go to Genesis 1, and let's deal with the moon, because the moon dictates a lot of what we're going to be bringing out today, all right? So Genesis 1, let me start at verse 1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. And God said, let there be light. And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good. And God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Jump down. Well, let me read verse 6. And God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters. And God made a firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. And it was so. And that goes into a whole nother topic dealing with space travel, whatever else you want to talk about. We can get on that topic another time. All right, the waters above from the waters beneath. All right, but let's see what else he did with the firmament. All right, and God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. And God said, let the waters underneath the heaven be gathered unto the one place, and let the dry land appear. And it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after his kind, and the tree yielding fruit, whose seed was in itself, and after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning was the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night. So in this dome, as some call it, right? In the firmament, they say there's an ozone layer. No, there's a dome. There's a firmament, as the scriptures call it. And within that that firmament is where you're going to find the moon, the sun, and the stars. It says here, verse 14, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. Let them be for lights in the firmament, again, in the firmament of heaven, to give light upon the earth. And it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And God set them in the firmament, again, in the firmament of heaven, to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good in the evening. And in the morning, were the fourth day. All right, so I want to touch on a couple things real quick, and I'm going to move to another chapter to give you some more understanding. It says, and God said, let there be lights in the firmament of heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs. Let these lights be for signs and for seasons and for days and for years. And so I remember when that understanding first came out, I was like, okay, that's a beautiful understanding. That's a brilliant thing, right? And now that we have that understanding, we need to, the scriptures say, add unto it, right? You hear wise man word, you hear wise word, and wise man adds unto it. So we're going to add unto it. We're going to keep that thing going, because that is the truth. The lights are the signs in the sky that tells us the times, the seasons, the years, and so forth, right? So let's go to Sirach, well-known scripture, right? A lot of brothers who study understand this scripture and what it's saying. There's always going to be back and forth, who's right, who's wrong, but he's going to go with what the scriptures say. We're going to go to the Book of Sirach, the 43rd chapter. We're going to get right to the point. And we're going to bring out what this says so we can get to some of the other books and see if they line up as well. All right, so here is Sirach 43 and verse 6. It says, he made the moon also to serve in her season, for a declaration of time and a sign of the world. From the moon is a sign of feast. So you have to see this moon to get the signs for the feast. A light, so it's a light first and foremost. We just read that in Genesis. He created these lights in the sky for us to look at for signs. So it says it is a light that decreases. So it starts as a light and it decreases in her perfection, right? The month is called after her name, increasing wonderfully in her changing, being an instrument of the armies above, shining in the firmament of heaven, right? The beauty of heaven, the glory of the stars, and ornament, giving light in the highest places of the Lord. All right. So that's what the moon is. The moon is a light and so forth. So if it starts out from a light and it decreases wonderfully or in her perfection, it's telling you it starts out as a light. That's the beginning of the moon. Let me confirm that. I'm going to go to a book. A lot of scholars will recognize this book as a legit book. Some brothers won't. Excuse me. Right? Typically because they haven't studied it and they go by what someone has said, and I don't want to make a narrative and paint a picture for you to convince you to read the book, but I've read it and I'm going to continue to read it because the understanding is there. It lines up with the Bible, and I hold this book true. So, the Book of Enoch, right? The Book of Enoch goes into what it calls the luminaries, right? It goes into the luminaries into great detail, more than just what the Bible gives you, but it lines up with what the Bible says. There's a couple different chapters you can go to, but because I want to get to the point that make it plain, I'm going to try to keep it simple as possible. And so when I read the 78th chapter of the Book of Enoch, I'm going to show you within this chapter alone, there's enough detail to show you that the full moon is the new moon. And I would encourage you to go get the Book of Enoch. It's not going to bite you. It's not devilish book. It's not witchcraft. It speaks against witchcraft, right? It speaks against a lot of the things that the Bible speaks of, but in more detail. And it tells you why. And it gives you the names of the angels who came and gave the understanding and why the world was doing certain things and why we started going astray and so forth. It even gives you more detail into the lives of some of our forefathers that the Bible doesn't give you so that you can have more understanding. Why they shunned the book, I'm not sure, but I can tell you now that the book definitely gives you a lot of clarity and it lines up. So again, precept upon precept, right? Meaning law upon law, and then line upon line, here a little, there a little. Here's the proof of it when we read the 78th chapter of the Book of Enoch. So let's go to the Book of Enoch 78. I'm going to start at verse 1. I'll read through the first portion of it. When we get to the meat of it, dealing with the moon, I'm going to hopefully be able to bring it out to you to show you that the full moon is a new moon. And then you can take that information, study it, disprove it, prove it, whatever you want to do with it. But here's your information, all right? The Book of Enoch, the 78th chapter, in the first verse. And the names of the sun are the following. The first, Orias, and the second, Tamas. And the moon has 4 names. The first name is Asanja, and the second, Abad, the third, Benassi, and the fourth, Ere. These are the 2 great luminaries. The circumference, talking about the sun and the moon. These are the 2 great luminaries. The circumference is like the circumference of the heaven, and the sizes of the circumference of both is alike. So when you read that also, let me precept that back to the Book of Enoch, the 72nd chapter, when it tells you 72 and verse 36. And that which thus rises is the great luminary, talking about the sun. And so named according to his appearance, according to the Lord, according as the Lord commanded. And he rises, so he sets, and decreaseth not, and rests not, but runs day and night. And his light is 7-fold brighter than that of the moon. But as regards size, they are both equal. So I know science tells us that there are 2 different sizes, and that the sun is so many billions of miles wide and so forth. But according to the scriptures, that's how you get, when you have eclipses and so forth, it happens because they're the same exact size. So it's not like it's some big mystery or that the sun is so far away and every now and then it tells you they're the same exact size. So when they do cross paths, they're the same size. Of course, you get an eclipse. But let me read on. All right, Book of Enoch, chapter 78. Let's go to verse 4. In the circumference of the sun, there are 7 portions of light which are added to it more than to the moon. And in definite measure, it is transferred till the 7th portion of the sun is exhausted. And they set and enter the portals of the west and make their revolution by the north, and come forth through the eastern portals of the face of the heaven. And when the moon rises, 1/14th part appears in heaven. The light becomes full in her, and on the 14th day she accomplishes her light. And 15 parts of light are transferred to her to the 15th day, when her light is accomplished according to the sign of the year, and she becomes 15 parts, and the moon grows by the addition of 14 parts. So that's when she's facing the heavens. Let's see what happens when she's facing us. And in her waning, the moon decreases on the first day to 14 parts of her light, in the second to 3rd parts of light, on the 3rd day to 12 parts of light, on the 14th to 11 parts of light, on the 15th day to 10 parts of light, on the 6th day to 9 parts of light, on the 7th day to 8 parts of light, on the 8th day to 7 parts of light, on the 9th day to 6 parts of light, on the 10th day to 5 parts of light, on the 11th day to 4 parts of light, on the 12th day to 3 parts of light, on the 13th day to 2 parts of light, and on the 14th to the half of a 7th, and all her remaining light disappears wholly on the 15th day. All her light remaining disappears wholly on the 15th day. So from the first day to the 15th day, you have most people who see the dark moon will say that that's the first day, but no, that's the halfway mark, right? So when her light disappears wholly, that's considered the 15th day. Let's read on. And in certain months, the month has 29 and once 28 days. And Uriel showed me another law. When the light is transferred to the moon, on which side it is transferred to her by the sun, during all the period during which the moon is growing in her light, she is transferring it to herself when opposite to the sun during the 14 days. Her light is accomplished in the heaven. And when she is illuminated throughout, the light is accomplished full in heaven. Here it is, right here. And on the first day she is called the new moon. For on that day the light rises upon her. She becomes full moon, exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west, and from the east she rises at night, and the moon shines the whole night through till the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. On the side whence the light of the moon comes forth, there again she wanes till all the light vanishes. All the days of the month and are at the end, and her circumference is empty, void of light. So there you have it. So when we see this big bright light in the sky, it says, and on the first day she is called the new moon, right? So that day, when we see her, it says, for on that day the light rises upon her. So that day we see her, this big bright light, right? She becomes full moon exactly on the day when the sun sets in the west, and from the east she rises at night, and the moon shines the whole night till the sun rises over against her, and the moon is seen over against the sun. On the side whence the light of the moon comes forth, meaning what we see, there again she wanes, meaning decreases, till all the light vanishes, and all the days of the month are at an end, and her circumference is empty, void of light. That is not the new moon. And it's telling you, on the side whence the light of the moon comes forth, there again she wanes, meaning she decreases till all her light vanishes. So there's a process that she goes through, right? So she decreases, all her light vanishes, and it says all the days of the month are at an end. So there's two different things. The moon decreases, and all the days of the month are at an end. It says, and her circumference is empty and void of light. So during that period, that's when she's waning. It's only when the light increases, right? When the light increases and it gets full, that we have what's called a new moon or a full moon. Okay, so hopefully you got the understanding. There's more to go into that book, but I want to go into some other things to make sure that we get understanding of what we're dealing with as far as the seasons right now. And so that's why I said, if you look at two different calendars and get the understanding of what it's saying, you'll see. So let me just read this for you so you can see what we're dealing with. All right, so the astronomical season, that's pretty much what most people go by. So let's read a couple things and let's see, what understanding we should probably lean towards when pairing it with the Bible. All right, so I'm gonna read this from the National Center of Environmental Information, so we can get a reliable so-called source. All right, so it says, you may have noticed that meteorologists and climatologists define seasons differently from regular or astronomical spring, summer, fall, and winter. So why do meteorological and astronomical seasons begin and end at different times? In short, it's because the astronomical seasons are based on the position of the earth in relation to the sun, meaning for them the earth spins, right? We just read in Wisdom of Solomon that it's the sun that moves and has alterations, but we're going to keep reading, all right? In short, it's because the astronomical seasons are based on the position of the earth in relation to the sun, whereas meteorological seasons are based on the annual temperature cycle, right? So here, astronomical seasons. The natural rotation of the earth around the sun forms the basis for which the astronomical calendar, in which we define seasons with 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. So when you even go do the history on solstices, like the winter solstice, pagan god and so forth, and all the other stuff, when you look at January, when they have the 2 gods, one looking forward, one looking back, those things are not biblical, right? Those things are not biblical. So when you have the dates that they set, like this year, I believe they have it set for like March 20th through 27th or somewhere around there, right? That's where they have their season starting as far as the spring. But We're going to look and see what the Bible says. We're going to see if it lines up with astronomical or meteorological seasons. All right, let me read on. It says, people have used observance periods, periodic natural phenomena to mark time for thousands of years. The natural rotation of the earth around the sun forms the basis of the astronomical calendar, in which we define the seasons in 2 solstices and 2 equinoxes. Earth's tilt and the sun's alignment over the equator determine both the solstices and the equinoxes. The equinoxes mark the time when the sun passes directly above the equator in the northern hemisphere. The summer solstice falls around June 21st, the winter solstice on or around December 22nd, the vernal or spring equinox on or around March 21. That's where you get the so-called spring date from them. And the autumnal equinox on or around September 22nd. These seasons are reversed but begin on the same dates in the southern and northern hemisphere, right? So basically just telling you northern, southern hemisphere, depending on where the sun is, dictates what type of weather they're going to get. All right. So then they go into details what they believe, how the earth travels and so forth around the sun, how we're spinning at so many miles per hour and so forth. That's pretty much the basis of where they get their understanding, right? But then you have meteorological seasons, right? Which this is what meteorologists and climatologists would use, right? And break it down based off of what they see. And I'm going to show you, according to the scriptures, that this holds true. So meteorologists and climatologists break the seasons down into groupings of 3 months based on the annual temperature cycle as well as our calendar. So based off the calendar that we have and that we use and the language that we speak, this is what they get. We generally think of winter as the coldest time of the year and the summer as the warmest time of the year, with spring and fall being the transition season. All right. And this is what the meteorological seasons are based on. So here it is. And this makes sense because it lines up with the Bible, and I'm going to prove it. It says meteorological spring includes March. That means all of March, April, and May. Because why? When you break down seasons, typically you have 3 months for each season. If we celebrated spring at the end of March, is March considered wintertime? Because it would have to be if we didn't celebrate the month of Abib at the beginning of March, but we waited to the end of March to celebrate the month of Abib, then we're missing a whole month. But again, this comes with studying and understanding what the Most High has put here for us with the signs of time, the moon, stars, whatever. And also weather climate. Like you can look outside and you can say it's spring, right? So it says meteorological spring includes March, April, and May. Meteorological summers include June, July, and August. Meteorological fall includes September, October, and November. And meteorological winters include December, January, and February. That's what the Bible says, and I'm going to show you that in a second, right? Those are the days that make sense. This year, the meteorological spring is March 1. It's March 1. Today is the 27th of what they call February, but there's a full moon. So for us, we know that marks the first day. Is it a coincidence that 2 days before the day that they call spring, that we have a new moon, a biblical new moon, and we mark that as day 1 of spring, the month of Abib? Is that a coincidence? I think not. I don't believe in coincidences, right? There's no way that they are guessing and making these assumptions without some type of study over time. You're talking about people who are in agriculture who understand land, which we're going to read, which we've had that understanding from the beginning. I'm going to show you that, all right? So we just got the understanding that basically each season is broken down to, 3 months. And so, and then you have the 2 main seasons that in particular yield forth things that we need for substance, basically, right? Meaning things that you can grow out in the field, because that's what the Bible would refer to it as. And I'm going to prove that, all right? So I would encourage you to go to ncei.noaa.gov and read it for yourself, all right? That is on the National Center for Environmental Information, .noaa.gov. Go read it. Go see. All right. So now let's get back to some biblical references to see what the Bible has to say. And I'm also going to go into the Zondevin Essentials Atlas of the Bible, because in this particular book, it gives you a breakdown of the spring and shows you some understanding to help you understand when the spring starts, right? Which is the new year for us. But before I do that, let me go into the Bible and just read a couple things and see exactly what's being said, all right? So let's go to Deuteronomy, the 11th chapter, and let's pull out some information and let's see if we can get some understanding. Deuteronomy 11. All right, let's jump down to verse 14. Just so we can get to the point and see exactly what's going on. All right, Deuteronomy 11 chapter and the 14th verse says, matter of fact, let me start at 13. And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love your Lord your God, and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in his due season. The first rain, so there's a rain, that's a first rain, which will be in the spring, and the latter rain, which will be in the fall, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thine oil, and I will send grass in thy fields for thy cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full. Take heed to yourselves, that your heart be not deceived, and ye turn aside and serve other gods and worship them. And the Lord's wrath be kindled against you, and he shut up the heavens, that there be no rain, and that the land yield not their fruit, and lest ye perish quickly from off the good land which the Lord giveth you. So, the latter and the former rain, right? You had two rains. You had the first and you had the second rain. That means rain twice a year? No. It's talking about the rains of the spring, the rains of the fall, the first and the latter, right? The first and the latter. Get precept to make sure that the Bible is on point with what we're bringing out. Because remember, precept upon precept. So now let's go to the book of Jeremiah. Let's go to the book of Jeremiah, the 5th chapter. And let's go to the 24th verse. All right? Jeremiah chapter 5 and verse 24. Neither say that in their heart, let us now fear the Lord our God that giveth rain, both the former and the latter. Again, two rains, the former and the latter, the spring and the fall. And this in his season, he reserveth unto us this appointed weeks of the harvest. When you go into Leviticus the 23rd chapter, you go into the times of harvest, right? In Feast of Tabernacle, you'll see when that is, which is the latter days. All right, it says the weeks of the harvest. Your iniquities have turned away these things, and your sins have withholding good things from you. Meaning, when we went into sin, he was taking away those things, taking away our crop, taking away the things that we need for substance in order to have some type of rulership and some type of independence. Because without those things, you don't have freedom. You don't have independence. So now let's go to Leviticus. All right, let's go to Leviticus, the 23rd chapter. And it started verse 1. All right, Leviticus 23, verse 1. It says, And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them concerning the feast of the Lord. So all the days mentioned here are feast. That goes into the Sabbath day, which many of you don't truly understand. And I would encourage you, go read. If you don't cook on the Sabbath right now, and you believe Exodus was talking about not cooking, go to the Book of Numbers. Go to the Book of Numbers, the 18th chapter. Let me make sure I check my facts. Right, go to the Book of Numbers. Go to the 28th chapter. My apologies. Right, go to the 28th chapter and read verse 9 down. It's showing you how to commune with the Most High and his feast. Another topic, but let's go back. Leviticus the 23rd chapter. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, concerning the feast of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy, convocations, even these are my feast. 6 days shall work be done, but the 7th day is the Sabbath of rest. A holy convocation, you shall do no work therein. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. So that day in particular is a feast day with the Most High. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which you shall proclaim in their seasons. So look at this first one. In the 14th day of the first month at even, it is the Lord's Passover. So the Passover, when you do your research and you study, you'll see that the Passover was held in the spring, right? And so that we get it as right as we can, we need to find out, well, when is the spring? When is the first day? So that we can have an understanding now of how to get to the 14th day so that we can celebrate the Most High's holy days, because he's telling us to celebrate these things for a reason. He's telling us that, hey, these days are set up for you to do this day is set up for you to do that. And if we want to, keep the commandments and learn how to worship him wholly and truly, yes, there's certain things that we have to do. And one of them is celebrating the high holy days the way that he tells us to celebrate the high holy days. So now let's go to the book of Deuteronomy 16th chapter, all right, in the first verse. Deuteronomy 16:1. Observe the month of Abib, right? and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God, for in the month of Abib, the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover to the Lord thy God, and thy flock, and the herd, in the place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there. Observe the month of Abib, right? The month of Abib. And when you look up those terms, and I would encourage you to go research, because we can tell you anything, right? We can tell you that this is what this means. Go look it up and see exactly what the month of Abib or the word Abib means. I'm going to give it to you, but I encourage you again to go do it for yourself so that you can get the understanding and you know exactly what's going on. So that no man, including myself, could ever lie or lead you down the wrong path. Remember, follow the words of the Most High. All right, so let's go into Abib and see what that means. All right, it's going to give you the first month of the ancient Hebrew calendar corresponding to Nisan. So when you go into the Hebrew, there's different words for the months other than what we call them over here. All right, so Abib, it has its own meaning. Even when you go to the Arabic says the first month of Jewish ecclesiastical year corresponding to our April, according to their April, not according to what we just read. Right after the Babylonian captivity, the month was called Nisan. All right, Nisan. So Abib has a couple different meanings. Let me read this for you as well. Abib, from an unused root meaning to be tender or green, a young ear of grain, hence the name of the month Abib or Nisan, right? Abib, ear, green ears of corn, right? Why? Because when you look at that time, not just corn, but other crops and so forth, remember, you have your rain season in the former or the beginning or the earlier part of the year, and you have your rain in the latter part. The rain in the beginning is because now the spring's coming, things are going to start growing and becoming ripe and so forth. Like these are the things that we're going to start to go out and cultivate and things of that nature, right? And then at the end of the year, when everything's grown, we pick it up, we pluck it out and so forth. Then we begin to reap the harvest of all the work that we put in. So that's what Abib is. And you cannot exclude March, because if you look outside right now, if you especially, depending on where you are, obviously, this again, we read in the beginning, talk about Jerusalem, the mother of us all. When you look at that time, when you look at that area in particular, you're going to have certain climates and certain weather patterns. So let's go into the Zondevin Essentials Atlas of the Bible, all right? So just like the Zondevin Bible Dictionary, this one is an atlas. It has wonderful information. I'm actually going to go to chapter, let's see what chapter it is. I'm sorry, chapter 1, all right? In this particular book, it's going to be on page 14, and it's under climate. It's about rainfall, agricultural, and pastoral patterns in the Jerusalem area. It gives you dry season, transitional seasons, the winter rains, autumn rain, spring rain, transitional seasons going into the dry seasons again. All right, it gives you the feast, it gives you the months, it gives you agriculture calendar. So within all of that, I might be able to put up a screenshot on our page so that you can see it, but I will go get a book, study, read, and see what it says. But let me read this under climate. Israel's year is divided into two major seasons. The rainy season, right, mid-October through April, and the dry seasons, mid-June through mid-September. Climatic conditions in Israel during the summer months are relatively stable. Warm days or cooler nights are the rule, and it almost never rains. In Jerusalem, for example, the average August daytime high is 86, and the nighttime 86 degrees Fahrenheit, and the nighttime average low is 64 degrees Fahrenheit. During the summer, olives, grapes, figs, pomegranates, melons, and other crops are ripening and being tended by farmers. Most fruits are harvested in August and September. During the summer, shepherds move their flocks of sheep and goats westward, allowing them to feed on the stubble of the wheat and barley fields that were harvested in late spring, because the soil is dry during summer months. Travel is easy, and caravans and armies move through most parts of the country without difficulty. The armies often help themselves to plentiful supplies of grain at the expense of local populace. The rainy season is much cooler. During January, this means daily temperatures in Jerusalem, the daily temperature is 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the city receives snow once or twice each year. Life is uncomfortable in the hot hilly regions. A discomfort the people gladly bear because of the life-giving power of the rains. Watch this. The Bible actually refers to 3 parts of the rainy season in Deuteronomy, which that's what we just read. Then I will send rain on your land in its seasons, both autumn and spring rains. Right here it says Hebrew, Malos, March and April. March and April. Those are your spring rains. It says autumn, October through December, right? So October, November, October to the beginning of December. So that's the autumn rains. It says, so that you may gather in your grain, new wine, and olive oil, right? So this giving you the period of time when spring starts, because that's what we're focusing on. It says your spring rains. The Hebrew word, I believe you pronounce it Makas, Malquos, Hebrew Makas, meaning the beginning of March, April, and also through May. March, April, and May. That's going into what we read earlier about the different type of seasons, whether you're going by the ones that you've been taught, or you're going by the ones that make the most sense and line up biblically, and which those two, again, when you go and you research it, astronomical seasons, right, or meteorological seasons. One of the two you go by. And I tend to lean toward the meteorological seasons because it lines up with the Bible. And again, when you research and you see what date they have set for this year, 2021, it's March 1. So March, April, and May would be your spring. But if you wait to the end of March, then you're saying basically April, May, and June is spring, and June is not spring. June, across the board, in every nation that I know of, is considered the summer, right? So those are some basic things to look at when you're talking about understanding what, with the moon, the sun, the stars, and the signs of times and so forth. Some things that really are relevant to us so that we can get an understanding. Am I saying I have 100% correct information across the board? No, I'm pretty sure there's some things that we're missing. But when it comes to the understanding of what the first new moon or full moon of the spring would be, that's right now. And typically we miss that because we've been going by a seasonal calendar that is based off the rotation of the earth versus one that is based off the rotations of the sun and the moon and the seasons and the weather patterns that you see right here before you, right? Let me read a couple of scriptures that I believe, sit well with a lot of brothers and sisters who come into the understanding of knowledge and understanding, by keeping the commandments. So I'm going to read Baruch because this one always sits well with me no matter what I'm studying. It goes along with the wisdom that we're reading in the Wisdom of Solomon. It's something that, we should hold dear because it's a heavy title that we've been given, right? To have the type of understanding and knowledge that we have. And we should always try to expound on it for the betterment of the world. I mean, the scriptures tell you that even the animals going to rejoice when the right people are in rulership, right? And so knowing that, what is it that we're doing to expound on the things that we've already been taught? And how can other people benefit from that knowledge, right? That should be the mission. We labor not for ourselves only, but for all that seek learning. So it's Baruch 3 and verse 36. He hath found out all the ways of knowledge, and hath given it unto Jacob his servant, and to Israel his beloved. Afterward did he show himself upon earth and converse with men. So, with this understanding that he's given us, there's a reason why he's giving it to us, right? He wants us to win. He wants us to get ahead. He wants us to lead. He wants us to let our light shine. He wants us to show the way. He wants us to do all those things, right? And he cannot count on us doing it without us having the wisdom to do so. So it says right here that he gave us all the way of knowledge, right? And he gave it to us for the purpose of leading and showing and teaching and bringing people up in a level of understanding that they have not been witness to, right? And let's go to the book of James. Go to the book of James because my goal is to help as many brothers and sisters as I can, as many who hear the rumbling of my voice, right? As many as I can reach and get into your ear. My job, the blessing that was given to me was to be able to help others. So let's go to the book of James and let's read chapter 1 and verse 5. If any of you lack wisdom, let him ask of God that giveth to all men liberally, and upbraideth not, and it shall be given him. but let him ask in faith, nothing wavering. For he that wavereth is like a wave of the sea, driven without the wind and tossed. For let not that man think that he shall receive anything of the Lord. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. So, if you want understanding, my goal again is to make sure that I can give you as much as I can, but it's your job to pray to the Most High, believe in what you're praying for, believe that the Most High will give it to you. Go out, study, search, research these things, see if it's true, right? And if somebody is in a position where they don't want to deal with you, somebody don't want to answer the question, they don't want to sit and go through it with you, they shoot down your ideas, they shoot down the things that you know or you feel to be true, but they do it without real reasoning other than just trying to suppress whatever it is that you have. More than likely, you need to move around and you need to deal with the Most High, but not in a wavering spirit, knowing and understanding that just because you walked away from man or walked away from a congregation or whatever it is, that the Most High will still deal with you, right? And if that's not to be true, then it wouldn't be in the scripture. So now, I'm going to finish out with a scripture that I believe ties in everything that we went over. And again, my goal and my hope is that you were able to receive some understanding based off of what we read, because there's a lot of information that we still don't have. There's a lot of information that we still don't have, but the goal is to search those things out. Like we read in the beginning, it's the honor of God, right, to conceal a thing, but it's the honor of kings, or the glory of God to conceal a matter, and the honor of kings to search out a matter, right? So I'm gonna go to the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, and I'm gonna read the 13th chapter because I do believe that it ties into what we were going into. And again, my hope and my goal is that you will sit, read, understand, and do the things that are necessary to bring forth the kingdom. And to the best of my ability, be able to guide you according to what I know, right? What has been shown to me. And then hopefully another brother would do the same for me. All right? That's that discipline and love that we talked about earlier. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 13 and verse 1. Surely vain are all men by nature, who are ignorant of God, and could not out of the good things that are seen know him that is. Neither by considering the works did they acknowledge the workmaster, but deem either fire or wind, or the swift air, or the circle of the stars, or the violent water, or the lights of heaven, to be the gods which govern the world. So a lot of people are caught into astrology, right? Astrological seasons. Going into the signs, Gemini, Cancer, Aquarius, all those things, right? A lot of people go into that because they're fooled by men, and men have become their idols. And so the knowledge that men has given them, and not the knowledge that the Most High has given us, they follow that, right? But I've chosen, and a lot of other brothers have chosen, our goal is to help enlighten you, and we hope that you choose to do the same when you're called to follow what the Most High has said. And so for us, we don't worship nor follow what men say, but we go by what the Most High says, right? So here it is, verse 3. With whose beauty, talking about those stars and all the things that they've seen, the waters and so forth, with whose beauty, if they being delighted, took them to be gods, let them know how much better the Lord of them is. So if y'all and everything that you see and the beautiful stars, whatever the case may be, if you believe those things to be gods, well, how much more is the God who made those things, right? For the first author of beauty have created them. But if they were astonished at their powers and virtue, let them understand by them how much more mighty he is that made them. So if all those things sit well with you, right, and you agree that the moon is so beautiful and the stars are so beautiful, instead of worshiping them, worship the one who created them. Worship the one who allowed us to get the understanding by looking at these things and seeing exactly what they mean. Verse 5. For by the greatness and beauty of the creatures, proportionably, the maker of them is seen. So by looking at those things, right, because it says the beauty of the creatures, talking about all the stuff that that we see or that we think are so beautiful and great, right? It says proportionably, the maker of them is seen. So you can see a portion of the Most High in those things. You can look at wild animals and the nature of animals and just like waterfalls and so whatever else is in this earth, and you can see a portion of what the Most High is like and what his beauty is like if you think those things are beautiful, right? It says verse 6, but yet for this they are less to be blamed, for they peradventure err, seeking God and desirous to find him, for being conversant in his works they search him diligently and believe their sight, because the things are beautiful that are seen. Howbeit, neither are they to be pardoned, for they were able to know so much, for they could aim at the world. How did they not sooner find out the Lord thereof? Why couldn't they find out these things and figure it out? Is because they were making idols out of the things. When you go to the book of Isaiah, the book of Jeremiah, and all throughout the Bible, you will see whenever there was people or there was an object or like our Arab brothers and some of our brothers who worship the rock and so forth. Like they would rather worship Princess Diana and all these other false gods than to honor the Most High, right? Because of idolatry, they're not able to see these beautiful things and understand that the Most High is the one who created them. It says, but miserable are they, and in dead, verse 14, but miserable are they, and in dead things is their hope. Dead things, meaning idols, whatever it is, wood, stone, who call them gods, which are the works of men's hands, gold and silver, to show art in resemblance of beasts, or a stone good for nothing, the work of the ancient hand. Now a carpenter that felleth timber, after he have sawn down a tree meet for the purpose, and taken off all the bark skillfully round about, and have wrought it handsomely, and made a vessel thereof fit for the service of a man's life. And after spending the refuse of his work to dress his meat, hath filled himself, and taken the very refuse among those who serve to no use, being a crooked piece of wood and full of knots, have carved it diligently when he had nothing else to do, and formed it by the skill of the misunderstanding, and fashioned it to the image of man. So he's basically putting in a lot of work, and after he was tired and so forth, he feed himself and whatever the case, like he's doing all the work. Or made it like some vile beast, laying it over with vermilion, and with paint coloring it red, and covering every spot therein. And when he had made a convenient room for it, set it on a wall, and made it fast with iron. For he provided it for that it might not fall, knowing that it was unable to help itself, for it is an image that have need of help. Then maketh he a prayer for his goods, for his wife, his children, and not ashamed to speak to that which hath no life. For health he calleth upon that which is weak. For life prayeth to that which is dead. For aid humbly beseech that which have least means to help. And for good journey he asketh of that which cannot set a foot forward. And for gaining, and for getting, and for good success in his hands, asketh ability to do of him, that is most unable to do anything. So regardless, brothers and sisters, of what it is that we study and what we see, those things are not to be prayed to. So although the sun, the moon, and the stars give us signs and it tells us things, and it's a world map per se for us, we're not to worship those things. We're to worship the Most High in sincerity and truth, and to believe in the commandments that he has given us, because that's what's going to allow us to get the kingdom. So at the end of the day, the knowledge that was brought out today, it was not brought out to be for me to be worshipped or for anybody else to be worshipped or the moon to be worshipped. It was for us to get the understanding that the Most High is beautiful and brilliant in the things that he presented to us, and for us to use that information to gain wisdom, as we read early when we first started the show. So that we can have that wisdom to establish discipline among our people, the laws of God among our people, so that we may get the kingdom and inherit the things that he had promised to us. If you believe in that, you can contact us via Instagram or YouTube, Path of Truth 144. We look forward to hosting another show. Look forward to seeing the brothers again. Lord's will, we'll see you next week on the Sabbath, Saturday, 6 to 8 p.m. Thanks for taking the time to join in with us. Blessings, peace, and shalom.